welcome to Almost Indians. I am your host, Rush Kazi, along with my other host,
Kevin Shawanda.
And today our guest is, introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm James Elias Island. Glad to be here on Almost Indians. I am not even close to being Indian.
Yeah, so we decided for our first episode we'd get the whitest guy possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we haven't prepped you at all about the topics we're going to talk about today.
Yes, I can confirm I have not been prepped. I don't know what's happening, and I'm slightly confused and afraid.
It's just like being at like one of those magic shows where they pick someone out of the audience, but you know for sure they're planted. You are not planted, but you kind of are because we did pick you as a guest. Okay,
I've never even met you guys before. How did you guys get on my computer?
Okay, so the topic that I chose to talk about, and it's gonna be a long one. Well, okay, you know what? Let me do a little. I wanted to take a step back and not even tell you what the topic is. I don't know. You went to Luau a bunch in the past when we were allowed to meet in person. I don't know if you were around that day where I said.
Just for clarification for the listeners here, Luau is not like an actual luau. It's an open mic comedy show.
Yes, Laughter Luau is a comedy show that I produced and hosted in the before times, and now that we're all quarantined still. It's been in an online format. I would hope that the people who know me know what luau is, but maybe we're reaching a different audience. Who knows?
It's a type of bar where the menu is alcohol or bags of chips.
Oh, yeah. The bar in which luau was held was a different name than Laughter Luau.
Wasn't there a kitchen right behind the stage too, right?
Yeah, what was it there?
Behind the stage?
Did they cook stuff in there?
We also performed in front of a broken microwave. Like, I don't know.
What's going on? Well, she was microwaving chips? What was that even there for?
I think it was popcorn. I actually asked the other one. Sometimes my nephews come.
Okay. Anyway.
There was a night when I was hosting Laughter Luau, and I think I just went on stage and just started screaming, "Fuck Winston Churchill."
Hell yeah.
And Mark Hallworth, who's a local Toronto comedian, was like, "What, Winnie C? What's wrong with him? What do you not like about Winnie C?" So my episode is about Winnie C.
Oh, hell yeah. Let's get into this fucking white supremacist dipshit.
Oh, wait, do you already know about Winston Churchill?
Of course, the guy's a fucking asshole. Yeah, I'm totally down with this.
Nice.
Wanted to teach someone something new, but Kevin,
this guy's like arguably worse than Hitler if you live in India.
See, like I'm just sort of ignorant to like other people's plights. Like I heard nothing about Winnie C whatsoever.
Winnie C.
But like, it's sort of funny that like that's like a very spot on Mark Hallworth, by the way. You're only missing.
Hey man, yeah. When he said,
you're only missing the fucking finger wag, and that's about it.
Hey man,
I think his hands were full. He had his notepad in his hand and a pen in the other. So it was just at this point, we're just now like talking about Mark instead of focusing on the topic at hand. But I'm going to share my screen. Or I'm going to try to, and show you guys a video clip. Let's try.
Would it be better for this stream if I pretend I didn't know about all this about Winston Churchill? I'm like, yeah, he's the best. There's like statues of him and stuff. What do you mean? You don't make statues of bad guys. I think Churchill's a bad guy.
If you know that much, you know what? Okay, we get it. But you don't have to pretend. Kevin doesn't know, so I'm teaching somebody something.
I'm sure I don't know all this shit. Yeah.
All I know is that he looked like an actual like evil like old white dude, because just like how he was dressed and like he was always smoking a cigar. So I'm just assuming that that's like just.
He would have a bottle of champagne with every lunch. That is the man that he was. I'm gonna play a video and I'm gonna share it with you guys. Let me see if I can do the share screen. Change to turn camera. That's not it. Present now. Oh yeah.
With racism back in news, so is the mention of Winston Churchill. Was he really a racist? Yes, he was. His racism is well documented.
That's a very quick. They answered the question that they laid out there immediately. We're going to get into it. Was he really a racist? Normally they would tease that out a bit. Not her. They were immediately answer the question. Yes, he was.
Definitely a racist. Okay, so we're gonna go back to the video and try this out. Okay.
I like how they had like the thesis and the conclusion in the same sentence. That was it.
A wartime prime minister, celebrated statesman, touted a hero of the free world. Sir Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill is remembered as hardly better than Hitler, a country from a Nazi invasion. But to the world outside Britain, Churchill was hardly better than Hitler. To the West, he was a fierce imperialist, imperialism being a validation for Churchill's racist mindset. The racism is well documented. "I hate Indians," Churchill once wrote. "They are a beastly people with a beastly religion." The hatred was not all words. Churchill engineered the 1943 Bengal famine. During the Second World War, Britain exported wheat from India, Allied troops were fed, while Indians went to bed hungry.
It's crazy how they have
It
this
was
footage.
not all food supplies to India. 4 million people starved to death in Bengal in 1943. It was not imperial mismanagement. The famine was a classic case of racism. But Churchill blamed Indians for breeding.
You fuck too much. That's why you're dying.
Churchill's xenophobia is also exposed in his support for gas bombs. During the Arab uprising of 1920, he lamented the squeamishness of his colleagues who were not in favor of using poison gas against.
What a pussy, right? Not
The same
using
year,
gas bombs.
The same year, Churchill sent the Black and Tans into Ireland. The murderous militia were tasked with terrorizing the Irish and defeating the Irish Rebellion. In the year 1949, Churchill ordered the British Army to fire on the anti-Nazi protesters in Greece.
Which I don't understand. I thought he didn't like Nazis
He
also.
also facilitated Zionism in Palestine. Palestinians were barbaric hordes who are little but rabbit dung, he wrote.
Rabbit dung. Got really specific
Churchill
with that dung
justified the
comparison.
colonization of Australia. In South Africa, Churchill planted the seed to strip the voting rights from the black communities. But despite
Really?
all of this,
He's so
Britain
busy.
is blinded by its excessive admiration of Churchill. He is a hero for Prime Minister Boris Johnson. His predecessor David Cameron thinks Churchill saved humanity as a whole. The truth is, Winston Churchill was a racist. His prejudice is responsible for millions of deaths. Churchill thought the British were winners in a social Darwinian hierarchy. This thought is out of date, just like British imperialism.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Racism, another legacy of the British too, needs to die, as does the lionization of Winston Churchill. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Okay, so that was long, but that's a nice little intro, I
That's
think.
some good shit right there.
Yeah, a lot of
That's some good shit.
very, very tasty. That little child eating off a manhole cover out of
Yum, yum, yum.
desperation, just yum. Just loved it. Okay, so I'm just gonna. Oh, are you rolling up a joint? Oh
Is it
man,
okay if I smoke a joint on this?
absolutely.
yeah.
It's completely
Oh, yes,
legal in Canada. So when I'm done my thing, I'm gonna actually probably bite on some edibles. So
Yeah.
sorry,
Right.
Kevin.
I've already munched on my edible a little
Oh,
while
hell
ago.
yeah. Oh hell yeah! Let me get on your level.
All right,
Yeah, I'm gonna smoke this because I'm not a professional.
That's fine. Totally fine. We're not in the States, Canada. Completely legal. We're doing this legally. All right.
And this is very much my shit. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
Okay. When I was young, when I was in grade like 12, I went to summer school. My summer school was actually the high school where they shot Mean Girls. So it's like, you know,
Ooh,
walking
okay.
around the halls, feeling like, oh my God, you can't sit with us. Except at the time, Mean Girls hadn't come out yet.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I know you're older than that.
It's just after when I watched Mean Girls, like I recognize those halls. I barely was there at one point. So there was I was there with a friend of mine. I was like a goth kid at the time, and so was my friend, and we were both like goth stoner kids, and we were really not focusing. I don't even remember what class it was, if it was math or something. I think it was some sort of math. And there was this picture of Winston Churchill up. And it was just him hunched over, looking kind of decrepit. And it just said study history twice in all caps with an exclamation point.
Wow,
And
ironic.
right. And then I would obsess with the idea of stealing this picture. So the very last day of school, my friend James and I, different James than you, grabbed the picture and put it in the trunk of his car, and we drove off thinking that we made away with like such like, I don't know, like a fucking diamond or something. And I got home and I put it up, and my parents would sometimes walk in and look at this picture and be really upset. And I do not understand why. Because they never told me about Winston Churchill. I didn't know anything about Winston Churchill. All you read are good things about how he was able to stop like a Nazi invasion or whatever. And I didn't know that he was the equivalent of Hitler to the Bengali people. And I'm Bengali. I'm not Indian. My parents are from Bangladesh, but it affected them as well. Yeah. And because of this famine, the people who basically lived through it are famine proof, which makes it really hard for us to lose weight. So yeah, that's the way you survive it, is being able to keep on body weight, which makes it really hard to lose weight if you're North American like me. So I blame Winston Churchill for being fat most of the time. But I digress. I have like issues with not blood pressure, but diabetes and stuff, and it's a problem. But all right, I'm just gonna jump right into it. I'm gonna give you guys some history. So before British rule, the Bengal area was one of the wealthiest spots on the planet. Okay, so early European traders came in and they brought a bunch of gold and silver to trade because the land was so productive that the locals didn't need anything else. They didn't need dyes or food, and so the thing that they traded with was gold and silver. And if we know anything about history, we know that separating white people from their money is not a good long-term plan, because shit's gonna happen. So the British started tearing up all of Bengal's wealth and shipping it all over England, which makes England such a nice and expensive place to live today. Essentially, like my mom would always tell me that the Hope diamond was ours, like the diamond that's on.
Interesting.
Ground.
What?
Isn't that like the biggest diamond in the world or something?
Yes, it is. It's the biggest diamond in the world, and it was ours initially. And it's funny because the Bengal area, Bangladesh in general, is one of the poorest countries in the world now, and it's because of all the stuff that happened that I'm going to talk about.
Yeah. Damn. Can I just clarify something here, Rush? Your family is from like that area of India, is that right? Like, was your family directly affected by this?
Yes. So all of the Bengal was affected. My family was directly affected. The Bengal area was affected. So that includes like West Bengal, like Calcutta, but also includes all of Bangladesh. And that's where my parents are from. So my family members were actually directly affected by it, which is why I keep saying that I'm famine proof. And it's difficult for me to lose weight because the survivors of the famine obviously can hold on to weight. But the Bengali regions were the richest areas. And that's where the East India Company actually set up shop, because it was the richest area. So there's a lot of like English speaking people. I mean, India is an actual like an English speaking country. People don't seem to realize that as well. It's like their government is run in English.
They got a lot of languages over there.
They got 11 official languages, way more than 11, but they have 11 official ones. And people here complain about bilingualism, but sure. Okay. So the East India Company instituted these heinous taxes on the people living in Bengal. So spending only about 7 to 8% of what they raised on actually governing the district, but they were taxing, I didn't write down the number, but it's like a huge amount, but like an exorbitant amount. And this led to the famine in 1770, where about 10 to 30 million people died over the next decade. The worst year of the famine, when some villages lost 80% of their population, company, like the East Indian Company, extracted 1.4 million pounds of rent money from the colony and only spent about 9,000 pounds on famine relief. So if you
disgusting.
Compare the numbers,
Imperialist scum. Fuck that.
Imperialist scum. So when millions of people died, and the next year's rent, the amount of rent that the British made was less because there's millions of people less that are paying their taxes, right? Because they don't exist. The directors of the company in London complained that they were also deeply affected the quote is, deeply affected to see ourselves disappointed by the falling income. So what they were complaining about was that their rent money was less, which is another reason why
money is always worth more than human lives to any, like state like that. Like, coronavirus has taught us that. That's the only thing that the people in charge care about.
It's like, oh my God, it really affects
the stock market's going to go down.
Yeah.
Oh my God, do you realize what this means?
I mean,
A million people are going to die? No! I'll be slightly less wealthy. Temporarily.
30 million people dying. How will they pay their taxes? You know, just like that's basically what they're trying to say.
Money kills your brain, people. Don't accumulate wealth.
I mean, I want to accumulate wealth, but that's just because I want to be a slumlord at some point. That is my goal.
That's a pretty worthy goal. But like, how many slums are you planning on having or owning?
I mean, I could own like many houses and just call it the one slum, right? So what if I own?
Well, I mean, like, okay, wait, like, so you're when you say slums, you're like only one, but when I say slum, I mean like a full neighborhood,
like a borough. You know what I mean?
Take a whole neighborhood and systematically extract wealth and underdevelop it, just like Britain did to India.
Yeah, let me just get to Rosedale. Do you know what I mean? Let me get at them. I will extract that wealth. Okay, so back to the story. One of the major things the British made during the early period of their rule was to make it possible for Indian farmers to lose their land due to a failure to pay taxes. Now, previously the Mughal Empire ruled, and they probably had their own issues, but there was never a rule where you would lose your own land. Like if a peasant's ownership of their land was protected, even if they failed to pay taxes in a year. So under British law, the failure meant that the East India Company and its officers got to repossess the land. And by possess for the first time because they never owned it.
Interesting language. Yeah.
Repossess the land of those who suffered a bad year or two. So during this famine, this was like exacerbated by Indian peasants being forced to pay the taxes of their dead neighbors. So
holy fuck.
In addition to their own, there's this Bollywood movie called Lagan that I love watching, where they kind of like reimagined a little bit of how this would work out, and a town won back their rights by winning a cricket match, which is the most Indian thing possible in a movie. Yeah. Cricket is huge, but obviously that is not what happened. And so just imagine, like, you know, James and I died. Kevin, now it's your job to pay the taxes for all three of us to own your one house. It's fucked.
Oh, man, yeah. So I think it's sort of funny though too that like that's something like in a movie that like that's a really bad king, right? The king comes in, he sends his boys in, they're all like, you have to pay your taxes. It's like, but my family's dead. And they're like, yeah, no, you have to pay all their taxes. You're like, that like, king's a fucking bastard.
It's like, what?
That's the worst king I've ever fucking seen in my life.
Sir, no, you can't. His parents have died. It's like, oh, I didn't understand. Okay, then you will need to pay even more tax.
Yeah.
Oh man, I just keep thinking Game of Thrones things, you know? It's just like, which one do you want to lose, your tongue or your hands? It's like, well, everyone needs hands. It's like, I guess you mean tongue then. But yeah, okay. So this is like we're talking about the 1770s, right? So this is like way before now, obviously. 200 years ago. So by the mid 1800s, so let's say like 100 years, almost 100 years after, the British Raj took over from the East India Company. So it's no longer a company now; it's like the kingdom. And India had developed a vast underclass of impoverished and malnourished people, particularly in the Bengal. Again, this was one of the richest areas in the entire world, and now it's one of the poorest because of horrible influences and like basically I wanted to say mismanagement, but that's not it. Just the fuck-uppery of the British, just like sticking their dick in the pudding. You know, we wanted to eat this pudding, but now there's a dick in it, and now we can't. So, so now we have this underclass. The British just assumed it was the way things had always been. That's how they phrased it. I have a quote from someone named James Mill. He started to argue that poverty was inherent to Indian culture. Part of his evidence was that Hindu legal codes from before contained guidelines for helping the poorer peasant class out during droughts and other difficult periods. That was in their religion. So Mill believed that these regulations were evidence that, quote, a state of poverty and wretchedness, as far as the great body of the people are concerned, must have prevailed in India throughout most of its history. And Mill went on to say that the Hindu, like the eunuch, excels in the qualities of a slave, which, yay! Because Hindus aren't people because they're not Christian. During this time,
why do you have to bring eunuchs into this? That is...
I feel like it's because they want to say that they lack testosterone and won't fight back. I don't know. The Unsullied from Game of Thrones is what I'm thinking of again. They just take your
Yeah,
direction.
totally.
That's fucked up.
No, it's just awful. It's just all around awful. I was gonna say something else, but I forgot what I was gonna say. But yeah, no. So it's just like, so now they've created an impoverished class, and now they're pushing this sort of propaganda agenda of how Indians have always had this poor class, just because I assume the Bhagavad Gita says that you should help out the poor during times of need.
Yeah.
What assholes, right? Like, how dare they say? And it's just like
oh, these guys don't just only look out for themselves and push everyone else down and tries to get in their way. Oh, wow.
They must love being poor.
Uncivilized mind.
It's sort of like how people claim that welfare makes people stay in welfare, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like that sort of thought process, kind of.
Yeah, we should give the poor less of a social safety net. That'll help them.
Yeah.
Good for them in the long run.
That'll encourage them not to be poor.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
We only do this because we love you, poors.
Poors, yeah. Back then it was Hindus, but now I guess it's the poors. Lower class.
I mean, you know, Hindus are still get it pretty bad from the rest of the world. Look at the vaccine situation.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know if that's a Hindu thing or just a whole mismanagement situation in India.
It's probably just a brown people thing, to be fair.
Well, like the thing was,
because you're Hindu, it's because you're brown.
I was reading an article recently that like the reason why like the pandemic is so prolonged in like poor countries is because all the rich countries bought all of the vaccines in order to like, you know, vaccinate like our population. And then when they like say in India, they're like sort of fucked. They don't have the vaccines and they're dying.
There's that. There's the fact that you can't really social distance in a country that is that densely populated.
Too.
But that is something that I want to remember. Remember what you said. Hopefully no one else is as stoned as you are.
You're the only one who's not stoned right now, Rush. You have to be the one to remember.
Because this will go back to the point that I'm going to make later. This will definitely go back to the whole like.
Okay, we're going to get back into this because okay.
Also,
all right, the IP stuff. Anyway.
Okay, what IP stuff? Okay,
the intellectual property of the vaccine.
Right.
Anyway,
we'll go back to that.
Yeah, we can come back to that later.
So basically, like, these people are poor because there's a system that's designed to keep them poor, and that's what happens now in like the West. But this is what was happening in India, especially in the Bengal.
I guess what you're saying is Bengal had it pretty bad from England long before Churchill.
Yeah.
It wasn't
this is like setting it up for Churchill to just assume that this is the way it's supposed to be because it's been like this since 1770, and it's England's job to hold the Bengal area down. So there's a book by Madhusri Mukherjee called Churchill's Secret War. It's very controversial. A lot of people argue against it, but this is the book that sort of like that news clip that I showed you was sort of based and inspired by quotes from the book. There's been a lot of research, a lot of newspaper articles came about. This is one of the quotes. So, equality under the law was held by the conquerors to one of the great benefits bestowed upon Indians, but native judges were not permitted to preside over cases involving whites. In 1883, Lord Ripon, one of the very rare liberals who attained the office of viceroy, resolved to remove this discrepancy, only to provoke a furious outcry for, as historian Thomas Metcalf points out, it was no easy matter at once to treat Indians and Europeans equally, and then to claim the right to rule conquered India. Basically, what that quote is trying to really, I think, show is that there are people during that time even who's like, what's happening in India is not okay. The British monopoly over everything is also not okay. We should probably have some Indian judges or some Indian people, in the jury when a white person's being charged with something. But if they do that, it's sort of Britain admitting that they should probably not be, lording over them as much as they are. And, keeping them as basically enslaved people at this point.
Yeah.
But it's also cool to know that, like, there were people during that time that weren't jerks.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'll have a few.
It is nice to find the rare cool guy in history.
There are actually a lot more cool guys, at least through the research that I did, that existed. They just didn't have the power that Churchill did.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the viceroy of India is just the person
Nice
from
guys, nice guys finish last, That's what I'm saying. It's hard out there to be a nice guy,
If you're the viceroy of India, your job is to rule over India on behalf of England, right?
Okay.
But if you're in India, you're probably seeing how crappy the local people are having. You're probably making friends, right? People back in England who are actually in control of you aren't having these same relationships and experiences. They're not experiencing the culture. They're not getting to see that Indians are real people.
So is he hanging out with poor people?
I doubt that. He was probably hanging out with
Okay. I was gonna say, like, wait, what?
This guy's really fucking.
This guy's actually like so legit. Yeah. It's like, well, no, he still didn't hang out with poor people.
No.
I don't really know if he hung out with poor people or not, but I'm pretty sure he did have Indian friends. And that's all that really matters.
Hanging out with the Indian bourgeoisie. He's like, you know what? They're a lot like me. They also hate poor people. We should be nicer to them. Not the poor ones, obviously, but.
So,
anyways.
all right.
Sorry, I don't know. I don't want to slander this man. I don't even have any information about.
Slander him. Fuck him. We don't know. In fact, he is
whatever.
the nicest person I've talked about so far. It's like the one guy who's like, maybe we should give Indians equal rights. Fuck that guy. But yeah, it was just like the British government was really worried that if Indians had equal rights, everything would become racist and violent because of the fact that Muslims and Hindus didn't get along. And this also happened because of British intervention. The British and Christians at the time, not now, believed Muslims to be a very noble religion, forward-thinking, similar to them, because it's an Abrahamic religion. Judeo-Christian Islam is included in that grouping. And they've known about that religion for a very long time, like during the Crusades and stuff, they were fighting against the Muslims. But now you're united against some weird polytheist heathen Hindu. So they're stoking these, they would hire Muslim guards in their military and give Muslims a bit more power than the Hindus. So there was this issue. Whereas before the British intervention was there, the people there might have been issues, but they were more of a cohesive group.
So that's interesting. They preferred the Muslims to the Hindu people in India
at the time. Not now, obviously.
Well, yeah. But it's sort of weird to think about because I would think that it would be harder to ally with the guys who you just fought like this. Well, not just, but had fought these like long wars against
in a different part of the world.
That's true.
Do you know what I mean? Like
Hinduism is probably harder to explain to people. Maybe it was easier back then with Islam. Be like, they got Abraham. It's all good. I guess it might have been easier for them to be like, these Muslims, they're cool. They believe in Jesus. It's all good.
That's basically
these guys,
it.
Yeah.
All kinds of weird stuff.
And there's so many
elephant guy, but you guys see it.
Monkey god, elephant god. They worship women.
Yeah. Also, there's girls. It's like, okay, I didn't know religion had to be political. They have like the original Gamergate for religion. Like, okay, listen, I go to church to forget about politics. Okay, I don't know why you had to put all this feminism into your religion.
So this is where we start getting closer to Churchill. By the way, I'm going to talk about in 1885. There was someone named Lord Randolph Churchill. Guess who he was the father of?
Oh no!
I've heard that name before.
It's Winnie C's dad.
Winnie C.
It's Daddy C.
Daddy
C.
Daddy
C. Daddy
C. Oh man.
Okay, so I have a quote from Daddy C that I'm going to read to you. Rule in India, as it were, is, as it were, a sheet of oil spread out over a surface of, and keeping calm and quiet and unruffled by storms, an immense and profound ocean of humanity. Underneath that rule, hidden are all the memories of fallen dynasties, all the traditions of vanquished races, all the pride of insulted creeds, and it is our task, our most difficult business, to give peace, individual security, and general prosperity to the 250 millions of people who are affected by those powerful forces, to bind them and to weld them by the influence of our knowledge, our law and our highest civilization in process of time, and to one great united people, and to offer to all the nations of the West the advantages of tranquility and progress in the East. That is our task for India. That is our raison d'etre. Apparently he speaks French in India.
Yeah.
That is our title to India. So his reasoning for being in India is to make sure that the Muslims and the Hindus don't fight, essentially, because their civilization is so much better. Right. And it's just,
I can tell from that quote, he's the type of guy who just loves to hear himself speak, you know?
I don't know if he was able to say all of that. There's no commas or anything. Like, I feel like
it's like one breath.
Yeah. And it's like, we've seen Winston Churchill. That motherfucker could not breathe. I don't know if Daddy C was a way healthier.
Daddy C must have been an open micer because he just hates pauses. There's no silence.
Just powered through, closing the set. Oh man.
So just running through it.
They would have laughed. I just, had to keep talking.
They would have laughed. I just had to keep.
My laugh per minutes are off the chart, though, bro. My laugh per minutes.
Oh my god, the grind. The grind. Okay.
What was this guy's name again? Thaddeus Churchill or something?
No, but that's better. It's Randolph.
Oh, Randolph. I know it was one of those.
Randy
C. Randy Daddy. Let's call him Randy.
You know that Randolph? That's also the bad guy from Pocahontas, right?
Oh
shit.
Is it?
I think so.
That was him. That was Winston Churchill's dad.
100p. Oh my god.
That was him.
We did it. We've beaten it. We cracked the code.
We did it. We don't even need to finish this, but we will. All right. So at this point, there were numerous uprisings in India. Different groups of Indians tried to upset that title over the next couple of decades. But thanks to having lots of guns and money, the Raj was able to maintain its rule with little difficulty. And I'm talking about the British Raj, not the local Indian kings and queens that used to rule.
Raj mean like royals?
Raj actually means king, but also the Raj is like the kingdom.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So Rani is queen. We'll figure that all out.
Rani.
Rani, yeah. Not Randy. not
Randy.
So there was no serious challenge to the control. I mean, what is the game? I'm playing Rise of Kingdoms on my phone, but there's another game that I play on my PC that is similar.
Rise of Kingdoms. Is that game that I hate that they're always fucking advertising on fucking every website?
Yeah.
Like Rise of Kingdoms. I'm like, I fucking hate this game. I'm never gonna play it ever.
Are you secretly sponsored by them, Rush? Is this just a scam to do one of those promo videos?
All right, and now a word from our sponsors.
What I want you to do, I want you to watch me play Rise of Kingdoms for a little bit. Oh, look at this. This is how we're gonna learn about Churchill.
But yeah, I was playing. I think it's Age of Empires. I think that's what you said.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Oh, I think Civilization is another one.
Oh, okay.
But, Civilization, you play as Winston Churchill.
No. What? No.
Yes, you do.
Yes, you can.
Video game about Winston Churchill. I'm very upset. I'm very upset now.
He's like the leader of the British.
Of course.
Which is everybody knows that the British is the fucking worst, anyways. So. Yeah.
I mean, I was playing for India in one of these games, and it's like you start off as a fucking sepoy working for the British Raj, and really, that's
interesting.
That's the game, and we're crushing down local dissidents and stuff like that, and I'm just that's what this game is. This is awful. The character's always conflicted because he has to hurt his own people, and I don't know. I didn't continue because I was I can't play this continuously and not feel affected by this. But I'm hoping that at the end it turns. But obviously, historically, we know that they don't get anywhere until the 40s. But I'm getting ahead of my speech. So
but thankfully, the character learns to not care about his countrymen. That's the story. That's the end of the game. Clearly,
well, the story is never try, right? It's
never try.
Never try. Never fight. Just let the British win. Don't even scream the British are coming. But yeah, so there was no challenge to the British Raj until August 4th, 1914, which was World War I. Now, England is a small island nation with not a lot of resources in its own country. So it needed to get resources from other places, like India, for example. So India paid or just gave 100 million pounds of sterling to the United Kingdom and sent hundreds of thousands of people, Indian people, to fight in the war. where they were obviously treated with racism, blah, blah, blah. But they sent all these people over and sent all this money over. And when this money went, inflation went up in India. So the war led to a lot of hunger among rural Indians. 60,000 Indians died fighting for the British Empire in the war. And the reason why India was so willing to send over people and money is because some of the politicians thought that if we do this, we'll get more freedom. We'll get more autonomy. We might become a dominion instead of just a colony. Mm-hmm. And that is not what happened.
Oh, no.
No, the exact opposite happened in the sense that in 1919, the UK passed this thing called the Rowlatt Act, which legalized the indefinite imprisonment of political activists. So anyone who even says anything negative about the British Empire could be jailed forever. So by the time World War II came around, the many millions of Indians that were still alive and kicking it were like, maybe we sit this one out. Maybe we don't volunteer to go fight as much and send as much money. Maybe we lend money instead. This is their thought process. So there are other groups. There are other groups that wanted to be loyal to the British, which my mom talks about these people very poorly.
Yeah,
but Mahatma Gandhi led one faction of people who wanted to separate, obviously. And then there was the other faction. And Gandhi said civil disobedience and also don't fight for the Axis powers, just stay out of it. It's not your war. And the British had really bullshit things that they would say. It's just don't they understand that we're the better, the Nazis wouldn't deal with their, civil disobedience. They'd kill them all. And it's well, that's not what he was saying. He knew that the Nazis were bad. It's just the British were also bad. So
yeah, so it's pick your poison.
Yeah. So it's I guess that the lesser of two evils is England, but fuck it anyway. Fuck it in its bung.
Plug it in the bunghole.
Bunghole. This is around the time when Winston
what year is
Churchill
this? Okay,
was
it's before Winston.
Okay.
Oh, is it?
Sorry?
What year is this that we're talking about?
We're in the 40s now.
Okay, this is the big one. Okay, right. Yeah. 43, right?
We finally made it to where we needed to get to.
Sweet.
All right, here we are.
Yeah. So now we're at World War II.
Wait, this is young Churchill, isn't it?
I don't think he was ever young.
Yeah. Oh, true.
Yeah, he probably just he sort of, even though he's old, he looked like a baby. So
yeah,
when he was born as a baby, he just got bigger. He's got bigger and fatter, but stayed a bald.
He's just like a shitty Benjamin
Yeah, he's a shitty Benjamin Button that was born a baby and then grew into a large baby.
I was thinking Clifford the Big Red Dog. It's just a red dog, and it's just a really big red dog.
Yeah. When Churchill died, he was 70 feet tall. He was an enormous baby. Yeah.
The biggest
all the children fucking hang swing sets off his arms.
Yeah.
He had an advisor named Frederick Lindemann, who was a physicist, who also was known as the Prof. And he is a giant douchebag who hates people.
Cool name for a shitty dude.
Yeah, it's just funny how that was a nickname even back then. He was referred to as the Prof by other politicians.
When that guy showed up at a party, everybody was like, "Hey, it's the Prof."
No, he wasn't that popular.
You got some lessons for us? He's throwing everybody beers.
But he gave us
let's go getting drunk 101. Let's get schlammered.
Okay, nerds, shut up for a second. All right.
Okay.
Now, Winston Churchill and Frederick Lindemann are dealing with the fact that Germany's coming for them. Now, in Germany's coming for them, Nazis, obviously, but also in the 1900s in World War I, England really fucked Germany in the bunghole as well.
Yeah.
Without lube. So there's a lot of aspects of they're coming for revenge. Also Nazis, and it's really scary. We should do something. I don't know. So they didn't have money. They didn't have resources. And India's just not volunteering to do it this time. A lot of the people in politics in England actually were thinking about making India into a dominion. And a dominion is like Canada. Canada's a dominion. We deal with our own political affairs, regardless of how shittily we do it. At least England isn't dictating the terms. With India, that wasn't the case. But Winston Churchill, being his dad's son, Randy C's son, really wanted to keep India as a colony because that's what his dad wrote in that long spiel. I forgot to mention Winston Churchill was a cavalryman a long time before this. So he actually would suppress uprisings in India. So with that, coupled with the fact that his father was this whole pro "we own India" person, Randy Savage.
Randy Savage with a C.
Savage with a C.
Well, that would be like if they like
Savage with a
if
C.
they made like Custer, like General Custer, like in charge of all the Native people. That's what it would be like, sort of. Right?
Yeah, I don't
Was
actually
it
know
gathering in India?
It is like that. Yeah.
I don't know that much about General Custer, but I'm gonna have Kevin teach me. I feel like, and that's gonna be super cool.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So they're trying to make it a dominion, and they're saying no. The British Churchill is saying no, and he's the prime minister, and he's a right-wing prime minister for back in that time period, which is So even it feels like a very reasonable request to be like, can we make this country a dominion? But they were just not having it. And this is a quote from Winston Churchill from the Daily Mail, which has existed forever, apparently. Yeah. And the quote is, "Dominion status can certainly not be attained while India is prey to fierce racial and religious decisions, and when the withdrawal of British protection would mean the immediate resumption of medieval wars. The truth is that Gandhiism and all it stands for will sooner or later have to be grappled with and finally crushed. It is no use trying to satisfy a tiger by feeding him with cat's meat."
Yeah, it's a good comparison to make Gandhi into a tiger, because like you know when you're like when like a tiger attacks, what it does is it just like doesn't eat for a while until you're like, okay, come on, tiger. Yeah. That's why they're so dangerous.
Gandhi, the most famous fruitarian in the world, a man who only ate fruit, is a tiger.
Yeah, like a tiger. Yeah, like a tiger would do.
Also,
non-violent tigers. You know, when those tigers, they're dangerous. They'll start peacefully protesting. You'll be fucked.
Can I show you guys a cover of a more recent Daily Mail just to show what Churchill was using as a mouthpiece back in the day? I think it's funny.
As a mouthpiece?
Absolutely.
Well, the paper was a mouthpiece. It's like a right-wing propaganda machine.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah.
Of course.
So
I was like, did he roll up the newspaper and use it as like a megaphone or something?
Yeah. The Daily Mail.
Oh, the Daily Mail. That was Churchill's thing?
The fucking worst.
Yeah. But look at
this. Wait. What's this, Rush? What's this?
Many will consider outrageous and utterly implausible slur on Britain's great hero, but in an intriguing new book, a respected historian asks, was Winston Churchill
Wow. Okay, if Winston Churchill is gay, that's the worst thing about him, eh? Wow. Damn. That's the most embarrassing thing about him. That'll ruin his legacy.
He acquired a reputation as a misogynist, notoriously rude to women, relaxed in the company of homosexuals, regarded their illegal activities as subject for good-natured ribaldry. He married Clementine Hosier, regarded as a love match, but he reality seemed cold-blooded. Regardless of the fact,
what? None of these.
What they're trying to say, other than they're homophobic and that the Daily Mail is basically a tabloid. But this is the newspaper that he got all his words out with. The same newspaper has now turned on him.
Can I just say that fucking whoever designed that fucking website should be put to death?
Yeah,
they should be put down.
Yeah,
like whoever designed that should just not like fucking.
There's no rehabilitating that person.
No,
they are a menace to society.
Just throw the entire person out with the trash. Got it.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like I said before, British people at this time thought Muslims were decent people and noble, and Hindus were monsters and barbarous and cruel. And that's the medieval war that they were talking about preventing, which is why they could never leave. This is what they did. They would stoke up tensions between the groups, which is why the partitions between India and Pakistan happened, and which is why Bangladesh, which is on the other side of India, was supposedly called Pakistan because they've divided it up by religion, which also was nonsensical because these are completely different cultures. I want to do another episode specifically about this at some point.
Yeah, they really like half-assed the line of the border, right? Like they're just like, whatever, it's this on the map, put it in real life. Same
what
shit
they did was like, they just are like, the Muslims are here and the Muslims are there, so that's all Pakistan now, and India's in the middle, and it would cause conflict because they're like, it's all spread around. And Bangladeshi people and Pakistani people are very different from each other. They speak different languages. They don't look the same. Their versions of the same religion are very different. Something that's interesting is Bengali people really believe in this thing called the fish ghost, which I think is ridiculous, but like I used to
fun.
think it was a ghost of a fish, but it's just a ghost of a person begging for fish because they're starving. Because of all
that's not as fun. I thought it was going to be cute. Or something.
What?
Yeah,
That's
no,
sad.
but I mean, it's like much things, like what they which means give me fish. Just like wandering around the lands begging for fish. Bengali people are very fish people, like they eat fish and rice. That's like, you know, it's like Japan if the fish wasn't as fresh.
It'd be a lot funnier if it was like a ghost of a fish and the fish just like swimming around, just like there is no cod.
Yeah.
There is no cod.
I've been to the afterlife.
Oh
man. But yeah, so the stuff that England did in India is not new. They've done it everywhere. If you like, you know, Africa as well, the Middle East, whatever, you know, they'll do it wherever they go. And so Winnie C was very dedicated to maintaining the British Empire as it had been in his father's day. So he was unwilling to give up India, but at the same time, World War II introduced a lot of complications for him. Again, England is a tiny island that is frozen and covered in rain, right? Not a lot of resources to fight the Germans, who are now looking for revenge. It's like World War II is like a sequel to like another action movie. So they needed India. So that's why they definitely couldn't make them a dominion. They really needed the resources that India had.
They called India the jewel of the British Empire, right?
Yeah.
They were. They were the jewel.
They were the fucking jewel and the diamond and the emerald and the gold.
And the rough or something. Yeah. I'm just quoting Aladdin now. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, they definitely needed India, and the British just couldn't deal with India wanting to be like, oh, free us. This is 1942 we're talking about, right? But so no, actually, we're going to go back to April of 1940. The UK had agreed to share the cost of the war with India. Agreed. Essentially agreeing to pay for anything that India would front the money for. So money is being lent by India and England is taking it. The thing is, England is not paying anything back because they have no money. So all of these are in the forms of IOUs. Like, I'll get you back later, buddy. Give me millions and millions of pounds.
Yeah. That's another way to fucking colonize a place, extract wealth, put in shitloads of debt that they can never repay.
Exactly. Oh my God, it's like a country of serfs, you know?
I was just thinking that, like, if we're talking about Aladdin, like, I'm just going to say that Winston Churchill is just like British Jafar, right?
Yeah.
I guess
I would have loved to see fucking Winston Churchill try and colonize Agrabah and just get murked by the genie. Yeah, I have a wish.
Bengalis really believe in genies.
Decolonize this Agrabah.
Bengalis really believe in genies, and maybe that's where all that genie worship comes from, is just hoping that genie would save them.
Based on true story, Winston Churchill was like, but make me into a brown guy, please.
Like unlimited power.
So India agreed to pay for a lot of the British expenses that weren't necessarily for their own protection. So if the Indian government spent money on coastal defenses because the Japanese were going to come, then like India would pay for it. But also if the British government needed materials to make bombers and stuff, soldiers that they have, like the Gurkhas, which are a highly trained elite team of fighters from India.
They were the Gurkhas?
The Gurkhas, yeah.
Such a funny name for elite fighters.
Yeah, I think they're Punjabi. So they're like turban fighters with swords. They're pretty badass.
Sounds like something from a Dr. Seuss, but I guess they sound pretty scary.
Dr. Seuss Gurkha? There's a Gurkha in my shirka. No, that doesn't work.
Yeah, something like that.
Sorry, no, but like it'd be like a Gurkha and a Sherpa, and they'd be walking like hand in hand.
There's a Gurkha and
yeah, they're like having
there's
like
a Gurkha on my Sherpa. Okay, we're really spiraling out of control here.
All right,
we're in problematic territory. Sorry.
Yeah.
The British government said that they would pay for that stuff, but since they didn't have any cash, it's a lot of borrowing money and like promises of paying, a promise to pay in the future. Basically using India as a bank of their own kind, like their personal bank. Britain's debt to India piled up, and everyone around Churchill started realizing that the Indian colony would soon be able to buy out every British interest and to completely be independent. I mean, the only way they'd be a colony is by name only, and that's bad for them.
So wait, India had the debt to England? Oh,
England had the debt
sorry, the
owed
other
to
way around.
India, but if
Right,
England ever paid India back, they could just buy England out.
Really? Wow. Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
So again,
So wait, when was this? This was
1940.
40. Damn.
Like whoever thought of that strategy was a fucking genius. The Indian dude that was like, "Hey, whoa! If we just get them to, if we lend them money."
I think it's genius now, but wait, okay.
Yeah.
And I don't think they really had much choice. It was just it was negotiations, and it seemed like a good idea at the time. There's a lot of issues, obviously, with Churchill. The war is really stressful. They thought that Germany was going to. Huh?
That's what they say about World War II.
Well, yeah, quite stressful.
It's like stressful. That's a famous
The British
quote.
were worried that Germany was going to cut off Scotland and Ireland off and then starve them the way that they did to Germany. So they wanted to do something. They wanted to be prepped. So now we're going to go back to the prof, right? By 1942, Winston Churchill would call the prof for everything because the prof is so smart. He's a physicist. He also did not give any fucks about human beings. So he would just look at things financially and pragmatically from that point only. And so anything that was ever brought to Churchill was also passed through Lindemann through Churchill. He asked the prof to help solve England's food situation because there was going to be a food problem because, again, Germany was starved. They're worried that Germany's going to starve them. So here's a quote from the book that I was talking about, Churchill's Secret War. Lindemann had been to India once in 1929. He visited an Indian mountain resort to serve on a panel on forestry. He was repelled by blacks, but he took along his English valet and did not have to be touched by native hands. On the strength of his 2-month tour, he would aid Churchill and the colony's affairs for the next 2 decades. In 1931, Churchill asked him to study the Constitution. The British government was advising for India to show up its weak points and to flesh out the background and funding of the Indian National Congress, just to figure out where that was coming from. And so the prof obviously had a distaste for dark-skinned people, no black people, no brown people, etc., any foreigners. But he also hated the lower-class British white people. So he's like an equal opportunity racist, but not a racist. I'm not a racist. I hate everyone equally as long as they're poor.
If you want to be my friend, you have to be rich and white. No exceptions.
And a man.
You're not either. You don't be my friend.
You know what? It's
and a
like,
man. Sorry.
Yeah. But here, let me say this other thing. Even that wouldn't be enough. Like he had a friend whose friend died, and like his friend was sad, and he's like, "Oh, I always thought of him as a second-rate person of second-rate intellect."
Oh wow!
And it was just like he was actually considered really intelligent and smart. It's like, yeah, I didn't think he was that smart. Essentially, he was just he was a dick. Because Winston Churchill, he actually lived in India briefly, like when he was a cavalryman, and he had servants. There's the stories like I said before, he drank like a bottle of champagne every lunch, which is a lot of fucking alcohol. He smoked cigars like a motherfucker. That's why he constantly looked like a baby because his hormones never got a chance to grow up.
That's what kept him young.
He was thoroughly pickled and preserved, and he had this thing where like he had to have like an Indian servant shave him while he slept. So that he'd wake up shaved to like go to work.
What a weird fucking rich dude thing that is. Jesus.
Right? But like,
I'm not gonna lie, I would fucking totally do that. I would want
really?
if I had the chance. Oh fuck yeah! Like I would dream of like like in the movies, like when there's like this machine that the dad makes to like get him prepped. He's like a mad genius.
So you would dream that like a robot was shaving you?
Yeah, 100%.
But what's do you hate shaving? Like the feeling of shaving? Would you rather like be unconscious for it?
No,
I don't understand.
I just have no time for bullshit, James.
Oh, I see.
I have no time for bullshit.
Winnie C.
Listen to a podcast or something while you shave. You know?
Yeah, 100%.
Don't let the silence creep in.
So the thing with Winston Churchill also is like he's racist, but he at least let brown people touch him in his sleep, whereas the prof would not let that happen.
To be fair, also like brown people with blades.
Yeah. I think the Indians knew that if anything ever happened to any white person, they would die. It's
yeah.
Even in their own country.
You can't just kill Winston Churchill.
Oh, that attitude.
Not with that attitude. Well, he's dead. That's why.
We're going to stop this episode for now because it ended up being too long. So we're splitting this up into 2 episodes. So for the people out there who are listening or watching, you're going to have to wait another week to get to part 2 of Winnie C.
Oh,
Nice.
man.
Can't wait.
Guys, you guys want to plug things? Or
Uh,
last thing?
I would like to plug my podcast.
The one that we're on right
What's
now.
it called?
The one currently on. Yeah, that's about it.
Nice.
James, is there anything coming up for you?
Yep. I'll plug my YouTube channel, Chill Goblin. I post leftist video essays, and my Twitch channel, The Goat and the Goblin, and just streaming politics stuff. And
Awesome.
It's good. It's fun. It's good. It's good, clean fun.
Good, clean fun. Like politics, so clean.
Mhm. I just put up a video about QAnon, so check that out.
Oh, nice.
I guess follow me on the internet. TikTok is at Rushzilla. Twitter is at Rushzilla. Instagram is at rush.zilla. I guess you could just go to my website, rushkazi.com.
Cool. Remember when you used to go by Rushzilla? Like that was like your whole thing?
I did. It was a nickname I got by raving and doing too many drugs.
Oh, you were like the Godzilla of drugs, like drugs for your Tokyo.
Yeah.
Nice.
There was a lot of like walking into stuff that really happened because I was
pills.
so inebriated, like I was.
Oh, okay, like a Godzilla would do.
Yeah,
I don't think Godzilla was drunk. I think he was just too big for a city.
Yeah, I think I became too big. It's sort of like when Mario eats the mushrooms and grows.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So like I just walk into people and just knock them over. I'm like, oh, Rushzilla's at it again. And for some reason I thought my day job wouldn't figure out who I was if I went by Rushzilla instead of Rush Kazi, which was stupid as they found out.
Yeah. They'll never see through this clever disguise.
Right? Like if I changed my first name to not Rush, maybe.
Yeah, Rush is not a very common name.
No, I changed the wrong part.
You're like when Dracula moves to like a small town and becomes like a high school teacher and he changes his name to like Alucard or something like that. Like spells his name backwards.
Yeah, no
one will see through this disguise.
So many goths named Alucard. And it took me a second when I realized that, you're just saying Dracula backward, you loser.
Oh, boy.
Just go by Lestat.
You're a real Rezal. That's backwards for loser.
Oh.
Well, you should have you should have went as Kazillionaire.
There it is.
Oh, because it's Kazi. Yeah.
Kazi. Yeah. Kazillionaire. That's great.
I sound like a rapper.
Yeah.
I don't rap. Okay, but that's been the show for this week. Thanks for sticking it through. Okay, take care. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.